At the center of the operation were three men who didn't fit the stereotype of brazen criminals. Patrick Gainey, age 34, from Loughborough, was the mastermind, the strategist who planned every detail with surgical precision. He rarely spoke, but when he did, his decisions shaped the entire gang's movements. He chose targets based on risk and reward, picked times when streets were deserted, and locations far enough from police stations to delay response times. His method was brutal but efficient. Fast, precise strikes that left little room for error. John Smith, 32, from Spalding, was the gang's logistics expert. He found and secured stolen vehicles, mapped out routes for escape, and sourced burner phones to avoid detection. His job was to keep the gang mobile and under the radar. Then there was Tarley Smith, 34, from Bagworth. He controlled the equipment, the kitman who managed safe houses and storage units filled with tools and gear. Everything the gang needed was accounted for and maintained under his watch. Unlike many street criminals, these men were not reckless thrill seekers. Their operations were cold, calculated, and meticulously organized. Roles were fixed. Tasks were assigned weeks in advance. Nothing was left to chance. Each attack was planned long before a single hammer struck glass. The gang chose their ATMs carefully, machines with weak perimeter security, often in shops, petrol stations, or post offices in small towns. Stolen vehicles, often sourced weeks ahead from far-flung counties, were stored in remote garages or hidden on farmland to avoid suspicion. Before an operation, every detail was checked. Number plates were cloned to disguise getaway vans, every tool tested and repacked. Escape routes were not guessed, but plotted days in advance, snaking through back lanes, fields, and even along canal towpaths to avoid police patrols. By the time police started to notice a pattern, the gang had already struck more than a dozen sites, each hit executed with military precision. There were no loud threats, no careless mistakes, just broken glass, emptied machines, and a trail of cash gone cold. Behind the scenes, the same three names kept surfacing in connection to the raids. But three men alone could not have pulled off such a widespread campaign. They operated with a trusted network of specialists, all with defined roles and deep loyalty. Surrounding the core trio was a circle of hand-picked accomplices, each vital to the gang's success. Alfie and William Boswell, two brothers from Bagworth, were the vehicle scouts. More than just thieves, they prepared the stolen vans and cars by cloning registration plates, wiping interiors, and sometimes even repainting vehicles. Their work ensured the gang's mobility and invisibility on the roads. Up north, Gordon McPhee, based near Edinburgh, acted as the gang's northern enabler. He provided intelligence on Scottish targets, coordinated supply lines, and helped the gang blend into the local landscape. Without him, the cross-border raids would have been impossible. Women close to the gang handled logistics behind the scenes. Sarah Haynes, Victoria Smith, and Rosie Mallister arranged travel, booked overnight stays, and scouted locations, all under the guise of everyday errands. They even monitored local radio chatter for police movements, helping the gang avoid detection. Frances Gilhaney, also known as Kathleen Connors, managed the dirty work after each raid. She laundered cash, handled drop-offs, and oversaw untraceable couriers moving stolen money. The common thread holding this network together wasn't greed. It was loyalty, often family ties. No outsiders, no freelancers, just a tight-knit group bound by trust. Every raid was unique, but followed a familiar structure. Outdoor ATMs were ripped free in seconds using stolen vans and heavy chains. The van would reverse hard into the machine, straps fastened tightly, and a sudden roar as the ATM was wrenched free. The gang worked in silence. No shouting, no hesitation. Indoor machines required more force. Doors were rammed, walls breached with vehicles or hydraulic spreaders. Inside, drills and thermic lances bypassed locks with surgical precision. Speed was vital. The goal was to clear the scene before police could respond. Strikes happened in the dead of night between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m., when streets were empty and rural patrols stretched thin. Confidence grew with each success. Cameras were disabled or blinded. Once reflective tape was used to blind CCTV lenses before the gang entered. Cleanup was meticulous. Burned-out vehicles were abandoned, tools discarded or hidden, and DNA wiped with bleach or acid. Gloves were burned or soaked to eliminate evidence. Over time, their techniques became faster, more coordinated, almost like a choreographed dance of destruction. This was no local crew. Their reach extended across England and Scotland, striking over 40 towns and cities during a 19-month spree. The locations weren't random. Attacks in one area were followed by silence, and then a sudden burst in a new region, confusing police forces and spreading resources thin. Gordon McPhee's role in Scotland was crucial. His local knowledge and contacts enabled the gang to extend their operations north of the border, turning what started as a regional threat into a national crime wave. Vehicles swapped constantly. Motorhomes, pickup trucks, sedans, all stolen, cloned, and deployed as needed. These were not simple robberies. They were coordinated campaigns that challenged law enforcement's ability to keep up. By early 2022, small mistakes began to unravel the gang's perfect system. January saw the first real breakthrough when investigators caught Gilhaney and John Smith traveling from Peterborough to Scotland in an unremarkable Fiat motorhome. Automated number plate recognition systems tracked two more vehicles following the same route. One a blue van, another a grey Audi RS4, both with cloned plates. The Audi was later found burned out, linking it to a prior theft in Merseyside. Cross-referencing CCTV, traffic cameras, and recovered tools like drills, crowbars, and even gloves left behind, police began connecting dots. Forensic evidence was decisive. DNA found on a crowbar used in the first attack matched Gilhaney. A key left at another raid linked directly to Tarly Smith. Surveillance placed him near crime scenes days before break-ins. Despite using burner phones, repeated reuse across different jobs allowed police to triangulate signals and trace movements. Slowly, a digital map emerged showing how the gang moved, struck, and escaped. By November 2022, the investigation culminated in coordinated raids involving over 200 officers from 7 forces. Searches in Leicester, Lincolnshire, and Edinburgh uncovered vehicles, cash, stolen gear, and incriminating evidence like thermal lances and CCTV jammers. 10 people were arrested, including the core trio and key members of the network. Each arrest was methodical and calm, no dramatic chases, just the quiet dismantling of a sophisticated crime machine. Patrick Gainey was taken from his home in Loughborough without incident. John Smith was arrested in Spalding after police monitored his movements closely. Tarly Smith was picked up in Bagworth, the same village linked repeatedly to stored vehicles. The Boswell brothers were also arrested, Alfie for conspiracy to steal, and William for similar offences tied to vehicle handling. Gordon McPhee was apprehended in Edinburgh for his role enabling Scottish operations. 4 women critical to logistics and finance were charged with assisting offenders: Sarah Haynes, Victoria Smith, Rosie Mallister, and Frances Gilhaney. Their involvement ranged from travel coordination to laundering stolen cash. By May 2024, the case reached Leicester Crown Court. The evidence was overwhelming. CCTV footage, vehicle data, DNA traces, phone records, and witness testimonies painted a clear picture. Prosecutors described the gang as a cold, organized machine designed to evade detection over 17 separate raids. Each person had a defined role, working together like clockwork to pull off crimes with military precision. Defense lawyers didn't dispute the facts, but argued motivation. For the core trio, economic hardship and desperation were cited as factors driving their involvement. Some defendants claimed they were manipulated or coerced by others in the group. The women's defense focused on loyalty and personal ties rather than criminal intent. They had not profited or planned the crimes, but acted out of obligation to family members. When sentencing came, there were no surprises, only consequences. Judge Brown condemned the crimes as serious and organized, highlighting the social and emotional damage inflicted on already vulnerable communities. Patrick Gainey and John Smith each received 7 years and 6 months, reflecting their leadership roles. Tarly Smith was sentenced to 6 years and 8 months for managing equipment and safe houses. Alfie Boswell got 5 years, and his younger brother William received 3 years for vehicle-related conspiracies. Gordon McPhee, tried separately, was handed 6 years for enabling Scottish operations. The 4 women received suspended sentences of 12 months, recognizing their lesser but still critical roles. This case reveals the dark side of organized crime hidden behind quiet streets and shattered storefronts. What began as isolated attacks evolved into a sophisticated national network operating with cold efficiency. Their downfall came not from a single mistake, but a chain of small oversights, relentless police work, and the power of modern forensic science. It also raises questions about sentencing. Were the punishments severe enough for a gang that terrorized communities across 2 countries? Or does this represent a just balance between justice and rehabilitation? If you found this story gripping and want to hear more real UK crime cases, subscribe and stay tuned. There are always more stories to uncover. That is it for today's video. What is your thoughts on our story? And leave a comment below, and I will see you next time.